co-host. There she is,
Oh, hello.
Kathleen Mercury.
I didn't see you there.
Sorry, did we interrupt you? Were you in the middle of something?
You know what? There's a rocking, swiveling chair at the lake house, so I'm going to use every bit of it. Hello from Exile Island.
Yeah, it's quarantine time, everybody.
Yay! But you know what? It means that we're healthy. It means we're doing our part to keep other people healthy, and that is okay.
Yes, and we're glad that we can all still hang out. You know, this show has always been online, so we're glad to continue to hang out online with all of you. So thanks so much for joining us. Tonight's guest is Mandi Hutchinson. We're so excited to chat with her in a little bit. Before then, we're just going to catch up on what we've been up to the last wild couple of months.
Yeah.
Last month we had Playtest Fest, Board Game Broads Playtest Fest in New Jersey. We posted
which seemed like 6 months ago.
I know, like another lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to get together before, you know, everything got really serious in New Jersey. But we posted some streams of some playtests and some other videos. So that was pretty cool. We're going to post those to YouTube as well. But since then, I was still on my road trip. I went to New York. I was in New York. And so I had to leave there a little bit early and come to Toronto, where I quarantined for 14 days and then just made a beeline across Canada back to Kelowna, which is where I am now. So we hope that everyone is safe and healthy and staying inside and enjoying all the cool things you can do online. I'm sure people have been doing a lot of fun gaming online, connecting with friends and family online. So we're very lucky to be living in a time where we have those opportunities and those options.
Oh, yeah. My gosh. I mean, and that's one thing that's so amazing, because that's one thing that I'm actually super excited about for Board Game Broads. And this is 100% because of you, Pam. But like, how much more, like, we've got so many more people involved in terms of being like admin, who are hosting events, running events, different types of events. We're now looking at expanding, you know, like our podcast too. So I'm so excited to see like the diversity that we have, all these women who are involved, all the different voices, the different perspectives that are being brought. And I think that's been one of the great things about, if there's like a big lemonade out of, you know, this kind of moment, you know, is how much people are really looking at how we connect and how we can better connect with each other. And whether it's playing games or like playing group games over Zoom, you know, like I've played everything from categories to wits and wagers with my students using Zoom. I played Werewolf the other night, which was kind of hilarious. You know, like stuff I never would have done, but now we can, you know, and we should. And so and to use this as a creative time, if it's something that you can do and manage in your wheelhouse and with everything going on, there's a lot of like game design work that people are working on and collaborating on because they can, which is super awesome.
No, it is so true. And thanks for bringing that up. I completely did not write that down as the thing to mention, that Board Game Broads, we're totally expanding. Now we have more weekly events. We have a weekly event where people talk about their prototypes they're working on, and we get feedback from each other on our different game ideas. Even if it's just an idea you have, you can present it to the group and get feedback, or you can show us the physical prototype and we get feedback on that. And that's been really successful so far. And then we have weekly just gaming nights, just so people can connect socially. And we still have our chats where we talk about different things, but now we have a more focus, like every month we have a different topic. So really exciting things, like positive things coming out of it too. So that's always good. Beyond that, it's our 1 year anniversary. I don't know if you forgot, and you know, it's okay.
I told my ex-boyfriend once upon a time that he had to tell me when our like pick one anniversary, because there are all these like milestone dates, and I was like, I feel like such a jerk because I don't know when is our anniversary. Pick a day. Okay, that's the day. Okay, now I know when our anniversary is.
Our anniversary is anytime in April.
Okay, good.
Our first show was April 2019. So we've made it a year. Yay!
Hey, that's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
Because we've been like hung out in person, and then you still consent to do this with me.
Oh yeah.
Not a small thing.
Yeah, we still are friends after a year and co-hosts, and I think that's good.
I think that's really good.
Yeah, so beyond that, I didn't get a chance to talk about this because we didn't have a show in November because of Playtest Fest, but at New York Toy Fair, I got to see Act Fast, my game, on display at the publisher's booth. That was really cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And then I got a chance to pitch to other publishers too. So I brought a few games and sell sheets for those games, and I had about 4 meetings set up with publishers I already have relationships with. But then I also went up to different publishers' booths and just introduced myself, which is, a scary thing to do, but I still did it. And I followed up with all of them afterwards by email. And I heard back from one company saying it's a no for them for one of my games. But then I heard from a different company, one of the people I just went up to and cold called basically, and they're interested in seeing a prototype for that same game. So that's really exciting. So now I'm working on just finishing some updates on that game before I send it to them based on the feedback I got from Playtest Fest. So that's the main thing I'm working on right now. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. What have you been up to, Kathleen?
Really what's taken the majority of my bandwidth is completely shifting how I'm teaching my students and game design, and how I can take games and use games with them in a way that helps them feel connected and remembered, and like giving them an intellectual challenge and something fun and creative and social to do. In this new environment.
Right.
I mean, especially because like 3 weeks ago when we started, they were just panicking and scared to death.
Sure.
And so, so trying to figure out and just completely redo what I'm doing. So I haven't done a whole lot of new game stuff because I've been so focused on that. But on the other hand, like professionally, this has been some of the most innovative work I've been doing in a long time. So I'm happy about that.
That's good. You mean like for your students?
Yeah.
So can you give some examples?
Well, it doesn't sound, that sounds so, the main thing is like, anytime a teacher like changes up what they're doing, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to backtrack, but no, just, really just how I can use games. So, one thing that I'm working on right now that I'll roll out later is on puzzles, because I really don't do much with puzzles as far as like the right answer, but I'm wanting them to create puzzle quests for each other where they use so many of the different like virtual tours that are online. So like sending people into the Paris catacombs or other places. And so using this vast majority array of resources currently available for people and having them use those in really innovative, interesting, creative ways. So I've been learning a lot more about puzzles and types of puzzles and how you construct puzzles, and then thinking about how I can then push that out to my students as far as like giving them puzzles so they can see the different types so they can make up their own puzzles. So it's a much bigger undertaking than I thought, but it's really cool. It's a totally different way of approach.
Such a cool idea, because so many places now are offering virtual tours, and so the idea of having your kids go on these virtual tours and create puzzles and games out of them, I think that's such a smart idea.
Well, and it helps them to like feel like they're interacting with the world again, because they are. Yeah. So I'm super excited about that, and I put all of my game design teaching resources at KathleenMercury.com. So with whatever I come up with, please, I'd be honored if people used it.
I think that's great. And I think there's going to be a lot of, innovations in the way that in the education sector, just in general. My brother teaches math at UBC. And so, he's seeing how this can be used even moving forward when it's not, necessary, but it's a good tool, for people to take, students to take exams online. It's a lot easier and more accessible if people can just do it from their homes rather than, having to travel, who knows how to the classroom to do it and things like that.
The vast majority of education is sort of based on the factory model, because the schools were created basically get kids out of the factory. So it looks very similar. Well, we're no longer working off the factory model with this. So if we're talking about using technology to connect with them at their homes and all the different ways they can use technology to engage with whatever they're learning, then we have to take a different approach.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Oh. Yeah, and that's, that's a positive thing to come out of a terrible situation, which is cool. And one like last little thing before we bring Mandi on is that a new thing I'm doing, because as a designer, I want to play every different type of game that exists. I want to, see every different game out there so that I have a foundation from which to work off of to create new things to add to what's already out there. And one thing,
gaming literacy.
Yes, exactly. And one area that I really haven't explored is role-playing games or RPGs. And so what Kathleen Mercury posted that she was going to be hosting a Harry Potter themed online role-playing campaign or whatever. And I was like, yes, because I enjoy Harry Potter and I've wanted to try a role-playing game for a long time. So we had our first online meeting on Sunday, and I'm super excited. And Kathleen wrote this game and came up with the ideas and came up with the scenarios and stuff, and she's running it. And so my character's name is Zelda Wilds. She's a Canadian witch. She's bold and brave, but slightly reckless.
The kind of witch that'll get in a minivan and like drive across Canada,
Exactly. I might add that to her story. I've already added a bunch of things that Kathleen didn't have in it.
That's all right.
I might add that she drives around in a van.
She's serious now. I mean, she's 12, but 11, but okay. It's fine.
Hey, they drove the flying car when they were like 12. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very excited for it, but that wasn't also a recent development. Okay, on that note, let's bring in our guest. Mandi Hutchinson, co-host of the Dice Tower podcast and also founder of To Die For YouTube channel. To Die For Games YouTube channel.
Yay, there you are!
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I mean, I had to clear my schedule. Wait a second. Sorry, that did not go the way I wanted it to, but I am so happy to be here. I've watched you before, and I was very excited when you were talking about this Harry Potter role-playing, and that sounds like, why was I not invited to this event?
We've got some characters. If you are more than welcome to play Sunday nights.
Yeah,
I'm considering, like, seriously, because I just don't have the time to do it anymore, so...
Yeah. Well, yes, it's super easy. So I took the Lady Blackbird system, which if you're familiar with, it's a really simple D6 system. And so basically you have all these narrative traits, and the more traits you work into like what you're doing, the more dice you get to roll.
Oh, cool.
And players can have a lot of narrative agency too, but I tend to have like kind of a structure for the night, and and then happy to kind of see how people play around in the sort of sandbox,
No, that sounds honestly super fun. I used to play a long, long time ago with my brothers, but they were really mean to me, so I stopped playing.
Yeah, well, we will be very nice to you. When we're done, we'll send you a link. You can check it out.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. We've only had the intro session. We haven't actually done anything yet, so this is totally perfect timing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm excited.
Yeah. No, there's like half a sheet of rules, so you're good.
Cool.
Yay. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Mandi. Really appreciate it. And, one thing I wanted to kind of start with is just, you play, I know right now you haven't been able to play too many games, but you play a lot of games. Mm-hmm. And as a designer, I love talking to people like you who have such a knowledge. Like we were saying before, I want to go into RPGs and explore them because it's like research for me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I want to add something new to the gaming world. I don't want to just, do something that's been done already. Mm-hmm. So I basically want to ask you, from your point of view for designers, what can you maybe, any advice or any tips you might give someone on how to stand out in sort of a saturated market?
That's a really good question. And it's a tough question because, and I always come back to this, and people laugh when I talk about it. I used to work in fashion. And if you know anything about fashion, right, it repeats itself. So you'll see a lot of the times, a basic white t-shirt or a basic button-down white blouse. Great. We've seen that before. It's a staple in our closet. But it always comes back, but in a different way. So games like Clank, for example, where it's like a dungeon crawl kind of game, but it has a deck builder. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm not really into deck builders. Like, it's not my thing, but I really like Clank. Do you know what I mean? So you need that kind of something that, yeah, what's old is new, but you're putting a twist on it. And it's really easy for me to say, but it's sometimes really hard to kind of get across. And I think what ends up happening is a lot of the time people kind of overcomplicate. So sometimes designers are like, oh, I have to do this, or I have to put this, and it just stuff goes in there. And it's like, but it doesn't make sense. It's not a nice fluid kind of gameplay for people. So then it gets frustrating. So it's that try to be different, but you can still use the things that have always been there and just tweak it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's super practical too, because, that's a way more doable goal than saying, okay, I'm going to come up with the new,
right,
genre buster, and and I mean, and you might, but like the chances of that happening aren't as good as you coming up with like a really fresh take on something that people know and they like, and then you've got an audience that's already built in.
Absolutely. Or like, just something that's familiar. Like for me, deck builders are familiar. Don't love them, but now you've found a way for me like, oh, okay, I won't necessarily discredit deck builders now because I like that twist of adding it with another kind of element or another mechanic. So that's another way that you kind of get another group of people into a game maybe they wouldn't have considered previously. So, yeah.
So you're not a big fan of deck builders. So yeah, it's good to play all different types of games, and that includes games that have all different kinds of mechanics. And so, you're not a big fan of deck builders. What types of mechanics and games do you enjoy?
Well, anybody who listens to the podcast, maybe I talk about it too much. I'm all about those, dry Euro worker placement type games.
Yeah.
That's right up my alley. And the crunchier, the better. But I mean, some of my favorite designers like Vital Lacerda, and Uwe Rosenberg, and those types. So I like kind of those brain burny, thinky games, but I can still enjoy other games too, like abstract games or dice. They can be really tough, but they may not be like a 3 or 4 hour game. Right. I recently just played a game. What game was it called? I'm sorry. It was I was at AirCon. And have you played Anachrony or games like that?
I haven't.
Is that David Turksey? I think it is. And he showed me a game. It's like a war game, but for Euro gamers. And I was like, oh, it's a word game. Okay, that's not really my thing. But then I sat down, and it's like an asymmetrical game, so everybody has different abilities, but you kind of have to work with your partner. I really enjoyed it. And I honestly was like, okay, I see figures on a map. This is not looking like something I want to play, but I really like the way that he set it up. This is coming to Kickstarter, by the way. I don't know when, but things like that. Anyway, it was a really nice surprise for me. So I'll play anything, really. Well, okay, party games, but almost anything.
Yeah.
I won't take offense. It's okay.
Well, it's funny because like the guy that I'm seeing is into war games. So we've played war games, and so Napoleon's Triumph was his favorite. And then Sekigahara is available on Yucata. So I've beaten him twice. And the first time was an accident on his part, but the second time wasn't, right. and it was like, and so I was joking. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I've played Napoleon's Triumph, I played Sekigahara. So what's this Rommel in the Desert thing? And tell me more about this East Front. And it's basically, and what he's deathly afraid of is that I am doing all of this research and learning all these games just so I can be a nightmare in the Board Game HQ at BGG Con.
Good for you.
Yeah, take over that room, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, so,
that's amazing.
So anyway, but it's the same thing with Pam. Like, just totally different style of play to what I mean, my games are like super fun. Thematically, mechanically entwined games are like 45 minutes or less because that's what I can play with my students. Right. So that's what I look for. That's what I tend to play the most. Then that's what I tend to like the most nowadays. So yeah, totally different approach.
And that's most people, though, that 45-minute to an hour. I think that's probably your biggest audience. I think most people can kind of say, yeah, I like a lot of games in that time frame because you can still get a lot of game, but in a short amount of time. So
like after dinner, play a game, and then still have time to like put the kids to bed and all that. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's good to like games that make you think and kind of touch all those different points and scratch all those itches is good. But then it's kind of a fine balance between that and not going so far that you have too much analysis paralysis or people taking too long to make decisions or the pacing being too slow.
Right. And that's hard, right? And I have so many things and I'm trying not to say it all, but like, and we talked about this on the podcast, games that'll say, yes, you can play this game for 6 players. And if it's a Euro game and they're saying that it's going to take like 2 to 3 hours, you will never play that game at full player count because it will never take that amount of time. Just like little things like that to keep in mind, because now you've just lied to me and I no longer believe anything you say.
Right. Yeah.
So stuff like that, or even, player counts, like, yes, it plays with 2 players, but it doesn't really play with 2 players. You just put that on the box so people will buy it, and it's a variant.
No, that's super true. And that's something I'm dealing with now with updating my prototype to make it up to 6 players. I don't want to actually be confident in saying that because one of the publishers who's interested, one of their prerequisites is that their games have to play well up to 6 players.
Right.
And so at Playtest Fest, I got a lot of good feedback on how to increase the pacing, because if it was 6, which it could, it would take so long to come back around. You'd be so bored. So yeah, I need to actually put in that time and that work to make sure that does play to the player count that you're advertising.
Right. Because 6 players there are times I have groups and they don't want to split up, right? So
exactly,
we can get a 6-player game and it works well, and the flow is going really well. Yeah, like that's something like, oh yeah, that's a keeper in the collection.
Right. So yeah, I remember when Nefarious, when that one came out the first time, and that was one of it plays well at 6.
I haven't. I have not played it. I haven't. It's on my review shelf. I just haven't played it yet.
Oh, it's cute. Yeah, and part of the reason why it plays well at 6 is because a lot of what you can do is simultaneous. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, but no, it's cute. Yeah, you it's got like an innovative little worker mechanic in terms of how you can get resources based on the people next to you, and we build and the artwork. I had the first version, so the artwork had all these like funny little like evil contraptions that you were trying to build and everything, and these really funny. Well, I guess it's probably not. They're like sort of like little hunched over meeples, for your lair and everything. So I don't know if they changed that, which they probably should have. But no, it's cute. Yeah, it's super cute.
Oh, adorable! That's awesome. Okay, it's on the list.
yeah, and I think I've even had students play that one too. Which is usually, because especially if it's something where my students can learn a game from the rules on their own, that's a high watermark for games.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So Mandi, I wanted to ask you, if you what are some recent trends that you've noticed in games that have come out in the last year or so? And also if you can predict, or what trends you see possibly happening in the future with games,
just as a general thing, because I know everyone right now, and I think I don't even know if it's dying down, but it's kind of plateauing, or oh my gosh, it just went right out of my head. Games that you can rip pieces up.
Legacy.
Thank you, Legacy. Sorry, I'm tired. It's been a really long day. I didn't sleep well last night. Yeah, I'm like, it's fair. But Legacy games, right? It just exploded, and then now it's I feel like a lot of that is still happening, but it's kind of plateauing a little bit. So I don't know how much longer that kind of high wave is going to happen.
Right.
Suzanne will be happy to hear me say this, but roll and writes kind of exploded there for a little while. Everything was becoming a roll and write, and I think that did well because you're still getting your favorite game, but in just a bite-sized kind of form, and maybe just a bit more accessible. So I think we'll see more of that, not necessarily roll and writes, but more accessibility within maybe some of these bigger games, and they're making them into something I can travel with, or something that I can explain really easily to friends. The 45-minute to an hour thing, I've definitely been seeing more games pushing not past an hour and a half.
Yeah,
more and more of that, but within that, lots of game. So it's not just airy fairy. You can actually get a lot from this game in that time frame, and I see a lot more of that happening from a lot of companies. I know Renegade Game Studios fills that kind of void because a lot of their games are in there, with the exception of your Paladins and outside games like that. But for the most part, when you think of those length games, that's who you think of, right? Because they have games in that space. So I think you're going to see more of that because it sells more. It's more appealing to a lot of people. I play a lot of worker placement Euros. I have to be careful how I approach this. I have had some strong discussions about this on Twitter. So anybody who follows me knows what I'm talking about. I'm hoping, so it's a slow crawl for them to change themes in these types of games. It usually ends up being games about colonialism, and it's just slapped on there, and sure, let's go do this thing. And I'm like, that's actually really serious topic, and you just kind of slapped it on a game.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And this is a discussion I know myself and other people have had, like, hey, come on, let's put some thought into it if we're going to do that. So I can't say it's happening. This is more of a, I want it to happen for them to kind of have either more thought into what they're doing with these types of themes, or maybe choose a different theme, with this type of game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think that's long overdue.
Yes.
Well, and it's hard though. I mean, no, I'm not justifying when anything is like simplistic or racist or whatever else. But I mean, so the game that I have that's in production or whatever with Colossal, it's a dexterity game called it was called Dirty Birdie, and it was about pigeons pooping on people, and it's hilarious. And yeah, and then but the thing is in my mind I always had to have like a backup theme. And so when Travis was interested in acquiring it for Colossal, and I said, well, but could be dragons. And dragons are infinitely more saleable. Now, on one hand, you've got pigeons, which is this really unique theme, there's like pooping too, but now there's like a million pooping games out there. I was ahead of the curve. Thank you. So that's that sort of tension and it kind of goes back to what you're saying too. It's like, how far out do you go? You're coming up with a design, immediately be confident in something if it's so different than what people have seen that it's going to work. Because otherwise, people just be like, what's that weird anomaly over there? I'm not interested, because it's like if you follow all the rules, you're going to be very good, but you won't be great. And you have to figure out which rules to change and tweak in order to be great. But it's hard to tell that, it's one thing when you're doing this on your own for a passion project. It's another when you have to have a sellable product.
And this has come up. Actually, and this was a big discussion I had online. And I said, because as someone, I don't know what happens with publishers, designers, like, do they come in with an idea and then the publisher works with them? Or is it like, yeah, this is a possibility, but we may change it to something else and you have no say? Is this something you can stipulate in a contract? Do you know what I mean? I understand for people, this is a job and, you want to make money. But I mean, it starts kind of there. If the designer has an idea, this is what they want to do. Are you willing to stick to your guns, or you're like, no, you know what? I really want to make the money. Do whatever you want with it. And this has come up with, and I'm going to bring it up. Yes, I'm going to bring it up. Manitoba. Do you remember this game?
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of by far.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm going to say it.
Do it.
And as a Canadian, just looking at this, and I don't know if you can attest to this or not, Pam, but I'm like, okay. So on the cover here, they're talking about, and I don't remember if it was the Algonquin or the Cree that they were talking about in the game, but then they had totem poles.
Yeah.
Every self-respecting Canadian knows totem poles are the Haida, which is West Coast. Like, just little things like that. But
that's the thing, though, is it's not a little thing because they're like, geographically, it's a distance from London to Rome. Right. This isn't a little thing, but if you're somebody who just doesn't take the time to, to say, well, they're all brown, so that's okay. If you're, and yeah, and actually, I will say this is in reading all the comments when all that blew up, and I was so impressed with how the Canadian people, thank you, like how Canadians responded, because people were very, very like patient, thoughtful, and saying things like, our government has made a lot of mistakes and we're working very, very hard to reconcile with First Nations, and this is not a step forward. And they're like trying to point out in a really respectful way to the designers about the mistakes that they were making. And some of the people involved in the game were like, whatever, it's a game, it's a theme, it doesn't really matter, And so it was really frustrating too, especially when they were given the opportunity to engage in a dialogue about this and what this could mean, but instead they just dug in.
Yeah, and that's it. It was an opportunity. You know what I mean? You're absolutely right. I didn't mean to trivialize a little thing. I think of it as Canadians, we know these things. Right. And so for us, it's just a natural thing. I know what I mean? Yeah. So I didn't want to, but I didn't want to make it sound like I was trivializing. No, it's definitely really important. But you're right. They had an opportunity. This made our news, actually, because they were just like, this is terrible representation. And the people behind it were upset about it. Like, that people were like questioning it. So, you know what I mean? So for me, that's a big deal. And I'm hoping we go forward with getting different types of themes. Like, there's nothing wrong with talking about slavery. There's nothing wrong with talking about colonialism or any of these topics, but make it matter. You know what I mean? If you're going to do it, teach something about it. Use something that, you're not just putting people on a map and overtaking people just because, do something with it.
Yeah. Right. Well, then, because otherwise you run the risk of, like, if somebody's like a conceptual artist and they, create something that's really shocking, if there's substance behind it in terms of like what the art is supposed to represent, then it can be a discussion piece. But if somebody just does something shocking for the sake of shocking, just for like the attention or, pasting on, basically, it's that kind of thing, then you're not adding anything to the world, and you have an opportunity that if you're creating art, to be intentional about it, not just create a machine with a picture on the front.
And a big thing that this is tapping into as well is, as designers, being open to feedback. That doesn't end, that's always something. We need to be open and not defensive at the playtesting stage and in the development stage, and even after that too, to be open to the feedback and not dig in your heels and say that you're right.
I think for a long time, the audience was a certain way. And there were, and I'm going to just say me, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but you may not have had as many people like me to come and say, hey, maybe you might want to consider this, or this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think now that it's being questioned, some of the people who were part of maybe the group that didn't question these things kind of gets a little defensive, like, what's the big deal? You know what I mean? You're coming in and you're offsetting the balance. And no, it's not that. People will want to market this to a diverse group of people. And with that comes questions and changes and things like that. And it's important, right? So we want to feel involved.
Right.
So
it's like when I bought Love Letter Batman to play with my students.
I love it.
And I opened the package, and Harley Quinn, like the cups were like suggestions. And then and Poison Ivy, it was like a corset, but like the laces were pretty far apart. And I was like,
wow.
Well, put this back in the package.
Right. Not gonna happen.
I mean, I don't know what other people think middle school kids like to talk about, but trust me, it was on the front of those cards.
Right. See, and there you go. You've just now lost. And if we want to take it from a business perspective, you might have just lost some sales, right?
Exactly.
Just say it.
I want to switch gears just a little bit because we have a viewer question for you, Mandi, from Heather. She's asking, what is your favorite thing about being a board game review podcaster? And what is your least favorite thing?
Oh boy. Well, my favorite thing is I get to talk about games like all the time. And I get to be silly and ramble, and people are like, oh, we love your shows. Or, I love it when I hear people, we get emails from people, especially families, where it's like, oh, my children weren't really into board games, or especially if they say like their daughter or something like that. And they heard, oh my goodness, there are girls that play, that are in, the industry, and they're talking about games and they're excited about games, and, or we really like your style, and, our kids love you, or I just love to hear that because it's getting people involved, and it's in a positive way. So, I think even though it's not a face-to-face, because I started off in video, so it was hard for me to make that transition more so to the podcast, but got some really nice messages and how we've kind of changed things for families. And I think that's really cool. Least favorite thing, it's not even really the podcast thing, but it's like people recognize me by my voice a lot. That's not even it. I think when I get oh, you didn't look like what I thought you did. And I'm like, oh, like, I'm not really sure what that means. Like, am I, anyway.
Yeah.
It always throws me off a little bit. So
yeah,
that's probably it though. Other than that, everything's pretty awesome.
Well, I have to tell you, so I had some students were huge Tom Vasel fans. And there was a few summers ago, I was working the Catan booth. And so you did a quick little interview with me for Throw Punch Lunch, just real quick kind of thing. And so I got back and I, told them about it, and that I was on something connected to Tom Vasel.
Right?
Yeah. Like, that was a moment. So thank you for that.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's so good.
I am on a show with Mandi, and I'm pretty excited about that. So,
yeah. Well, I'm excited to be here with you too. I feel like we see each other a lot. Passing, it's like, hey, how are you? But I never get to spend any actual quality time with anyone.
Right. Yeah.
So it's nice to have that, and especially when it's other females that are in the industry, it's nice because sometimes you get to talk about things that you may not always talk about with other people. So it's a nice thing.
Well, speaking of that, and I'm going to do this right now. So Pam was somebody, we need a list of questions that we will never ask anybody who's on our show.
Oh, good.
And I said, but I really want to know what eyeliner you use. Because it always looks good, on point, thick. It doesn't seem to move on you. You can just hold your face, Pamela Walls. You just go hold your face over there in Canada.
It's like, no, I will share the secret. So today it's not, usually I do it really thick. I had to switch. So I switched all my makeup products to cruelty-free. And that was hard. Not the fact that cruelty-free part, but I had an eyeliner that was beautiful. Like it was so dark and it was matte. So, and I loved it. So I was upset, couldn't find it. Now I am using, I tried two. So I started off with the Kat Von D liquid eyeliner, and then Kat Von D, I don't know, she's just started saying some things that I didn't really like. So that went away. And now I'm using Stila.
Okay.
Yeah, the Stila liquid eyeliner. I don't remember the exact name for it, but it stays on all day and it's nice and black.
Okay. Thank you. That is helpful information.
I'm very glad that we discussed that.
Okay, I get asked a lot, to be honest.
You know what? I bet you anything that someone else has the same question. And if like anybody watching, please says yes, eyeliner. Thank you. Okay.
Do you have a follow-up question?
I do actually. I do. Okay. So, I mean, because that's one thing is, especially if people are trying to stand out like for themselves, you know, because you have a look, you have a brand that you know, yeah, I mean, it's your personal style, but I mean, you've carried that forward, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything you would suggest if people are trying to figure out ways to make themselves stand out amongst all the gamers and game designers out there that you would advise?
And it comes down to that whole just be yourself. You know, you hear that all the time, and I'm a little different. So believe it or not, I'm an introvert. People don't believe it, but I am. This is me, but it's like a character of me, but it's still me. I don't know how, like when I teach a class, I try and get people out of their shell. I tell them to kind of create a character. It's you, but it's like a more extroverted version of you. And you almost kind of have to slip into that persona when you're, you know, making games, when you're designing games, when you're speaking with publishers, or you're on social media. So people are still getting to know you, but you're kind of pushing a different persona because maybe you're just a little quieter on the inside. So for me, apparently I've always been like this. I don't know if anybody's seen the show Laugh-In. It's super old. Okay.
Yeah, it's from like the 60s.
It is, yeah. So I was obsessed with Goldie Hawn, and if you see it, look it up. You'll 100% know what I'm talking about. My mom just loved the bright colors and the costumes and the outfits. So I've been like this since I was a kid. I was quiet, but I had my thing. And I made that work for me. Do you know what I mean? So I would incorporate into any style. So I love styles from the 50s and the 60s. Now, was it a great era for my people? Not really, but I liked the fashion because I get asked about that a lot. Why I picked to be like more pinup and stuff, and it's always associated with it's sexy or it's inappropriate, and I'm like, sure, but I like the clothes. It's a time where it wasn't fair for a lot of people, and I want to say, hey, it's cool. It's part of my fashion. I love the fashion instead of, hey, we can be beautiful too, and that's kind of how I preface it.
Right.
So. All that to say, yes, be yourself, but it's almost like an extroverted version of yourself.
I think I think that's a great point because especially, I mean, I am not shy, but
I know this is an extra introvert sandwich around Kathleen right now.
Right?
Oh my God. No, I had such a hard time being here for like 2 days by myself. Like I will never know life,
Meanwhile, I've been in a van by myself for 3 months, and I was good.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'm better now. Actually, I'm very much enjoying like puttering around to myself and baking bread and all the weird.
Good.
My birthday's on Tuesday. My big plans are to make a Mary Berry's Bakewell tart and Boston cream donuts for myself on my birthday, because what else am I going to do? But moreover, back to the point, is I think that idea, though, of having that sort of character or armor or shell, especially for women when it comes to being involved in the gaming industry, if you're just getting started, people are so incredibly supportive, but they're not necessarily going to bend over backwards to like open the door for you to help you up onto the step. You're going to have to do that yourself a bit. And so having that, like cloak of, faux confidence, if that's what it is, fake it till you make it.
Sure, exactly.
I think is a really important thing for, anyone wanting to succeed, but especially for women, because how many times, like when I was presenting a game and people would turn to guys I was with to like ask them questions about it. And it's like, hey, I made the toy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. You got it.
I have just one last question before we kind of wrap up. Especially with right now with the situation with everyone taking advantage and being more innovative with digital platforms, playing more games online and in different ways. I want to hear about what you think about, board games in the digital space, and how people are approaching them differently now, and how you see them kind of evolving moving forward.
Well, I think now is a lot of people who are like, I'd never use technology. Well, guess what? You want to play a game? You're gonna have to. Yeah. So I think it's kind of pushing people into a space they're not familiar with, but it's still a way for them to connect with other people through gaming. So I think after this whole thing happens, I think you are gonna see a surge, I think, in these kind of tabletopias, Yukata, these kinds of sites that are, people were using, but I think because we have kind of no choice now, you're going to see more of that after this is done. Like Suzanne and I do a show called Apptastic. We do it every couple of weeks. We've been doing it a little bit more now that we're we can't really go anywhere. And we've been doing it through Steam. We do apps. We just did Tabletopia a couple days ago. And it gives people a good way to see how it operates. And I think people are nervous. It's much like when I work, I'm a teacher, right? Like, as you are as well. And I teach adults, and we do a lot of virtual learning, and trying to get people to get their cameras in order, get the things they need to do it. This is how the program works. They don't want to do it. It's too much. It's too hard. It's not familiar with it. I don't want to do it. And I think that's where this kind of falls in. So if you have people that are patient enough to teach it, to walk you through it, you see enough people doing it, you're like, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. I have a friend, literally, he's like, I will never do this. And guess what? Got him to play a viticulture at Tabletopia with us on chat. And he had a good time. And now we're going to do it every Tuesday night. We're going to get together. And he's like, I really enjoyed that. So you just need someone, I think, who's familiar to kind of walk you through it. And sure, maybe at the end of it, you won't like it. But I do think we're going to see a bit more of this even after this whole thing happens.
Oh, no question. Because that's one thing. I was in Stephen Bonacor's chat earlier tonight. And the people were talking about this, and honestly, because of this, I'm now learning how to use Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator, which I had never done before because I didn't have to. When I play testing games, cool, I've got classrooms full of kids. I can get 15 play tests in a week. Awesome, And so this is a better, more adult, and honestly more realistic way of testing games. Plus, it's a good challenge for me too to learn how to do all this that I probably wouldn't have done. But I've got the time and the need for it, and so now I'm going to do it. You're totally right.
Absolutely. And that's it. It's a learning curve. Let's be clear. Like when our first game, Suzanne, if you're watching this, of paperback it was bad. On Tabletopia, it took us a while. But then once we kind of repeated it and got over it, it became a lot easier. I started learning little shortcuts, and that made me happy that I was learning, I know how to do this and take a shot of this and move this. And and we actually open a chat. So how we're all talking right now, we have a chat open like this while we're playing. So we still get to see each other, so we're not missing those nuances of little jokes we like to make and helping each other out and playing the game. So yeah, and as from a designer perspective, I think Gil Hova had a game on there which I'm gonna check out. It's not a full game, but it gives us a taste of what the game's about. The Networks Rivals. It's a 2-player. Yeah, so I was like, oh, this is great. I can check it out because I didn't actually have a physical copy in hand. And guess what? On the podcast, whoever listens to the podcast, I'm probably gonna be reviewing a lot of games on Tabletopia because I don't have someone here that I can play games with. So, yeah.
There you go.
That's exciting.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Mandi. It's been really awesome to have you. Just where?
And I want to say, just to clarify from what I was saying earlier, being able to talk with you on Throat Punch Lunch and have that interaction was fun for me as well. Not to just make you a tool, an agent of your dark overlord. That was not what I was saying.
Oh, it's okay. We all know that I actually run the show. Just kidding, Tom. Just kidding.
Yeah. Just kidding about the Dark Overlord part 2.
Exactly. Wink, wink.
And so where can people find you, Mandi?
Oh my goodness, I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
If you want to send me an email, you can send it to Mandi, that's Mandi with an I, at dicetower.com. I'm also on Instagram at Board Gaming Pinup Girl. I'm on Twitter at Board Gamer Pinup Girl. And To Die For Games, we are on Facebook under To Die For Games and on YouTube.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much. It's been really awesome.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself and hope to see you Sunday for Harry Potter.
I'm hoping, cross my fingers, I will do it. I have a sewing project, so if I can get it done, I will be there.
Do it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and I run each night. That's basically like in one shot, so you won't have to worry about like if you like it, you want to come every week, fine. But if you can only come here or there, no pressure.
Awesome! I'm excited. This is
cool.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah, good to see you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi.
Hey there.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, please do it again. There she is.
Oh,
no,
wow.
I need to get one of those too. I bet I can find one around here. Oh, I see. You spun around too fast. You
swivels.
You spun around so
There's
fast.
my
You
bar,
froze
aka.
No,
well, that's fine.
You're good. Your camera's like whoa. Slow down.
Settle down there, lady.
Oh my goodness.
What's up?
So, hey there. Now is the point of the show where we discuss those banned questions. No, I'm just kidding.
Asking Mandi about her eyeliner is 100% worthwhile content. I just see a bunch of people saying thank you, and that was awesome. So I 100% assume they are talking about
her thoughts on the board game trends.
You know what?
Yeah.
Looking at my tabs, I've got Facebook, Be Live, how to update your Steam because I got a problem with the Catalina thing, Board Game Geek, and Sephora. So literally on brand for me.
No, I appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to do our games of the show. So this is where we share a game that we enjoy, designed by women or gender non-conforming designer.
And it's usually where Pam asks me questions that I can't answer, and she likes it when I'm...
Yeah, I always give you... You want to do mine first, or you want to do yours?
No, I'll do mine first, and then you can torture me. That's more fun.
Fantastic.
So Pam reminded me before the show, like, oh, yeah, your game. I was like, because I plan ahead sometimes. And so I was looking through lists of women designers, and I was like, wait, what? So I would like to say that my game is Russian Rails, out of print. Will likely be out of print forever because Mayfair Games died, and Asmodee has the licenses, and I don't know that they're interested in resurrecting the crayon rail system of train games that I love. All of them. Iron Dragon.
You can't see Mandi, but I still can in the lobby, and she's like...
Thank you, Mandi. I love the Empire Builder series games and Russian Rails, which is each one of the games in the series has like some little twist on it. But basically, crayon rail means that you actually draw on the board. And so it costs money to draw. So as you pick up and deliver things, you get more money, you draw out your network, and then it goes from there. And so with Russian Rails, what's kind of fun about it is you play as the Soviet Union, is it Russia? But then when Russia falls, like certain boundaries come up on the map, the currency is devalued, and it's nothing too substantial, but it's kind of fun how they put that in there, And so anyway, it's designed by Jody Soares, S-O-A-R-S. So I was super excited because I had no idea that was designed by a woman, and I love the Empire Builder series of games. So if you like something that's basically multiplayer solitaire with crayons, Anytime you see me at a con, like, and that's actually what, especially for like Iron Dragon, I'll take it at cons like a BTG. I'll put like a flag up on the table, just sit by the box, and like people come out of the woodwork and they're just like, so there you go. That's my game.
I would like to add though that my game Where the Wind Blows, you said it's basically multiplayer solitaire.
Mm-hmm. Right, but
not in a good way.
Well, because also each turn took like 7 minutes, and so when it would come back around to me for my turn, it had been a little bit of time. And
so you like simultaneous multiplayer solitaire, or at least.
Well, either way, I don't feel like there's a good answer here, but the good news is I liked all the suggestions that we worked on to help you speed up your game.
Yes, no, I appreciate it. It's a much better game now, for sure.
That's why we did it.
No, that's cool. And that brings up the point of, a lot of people are like, oh, like, no, there's no games designed by women. There's no good games designed by women. But once you look into it, you see, and that's one of the main reasons that we do this segment every show, is that there are, you just probably don't know about them because the majority of the time designer doesn't have their name on the box, or there's just the top 10 cis dudes that make all the games that you know of mostly. But yeah, we've just on the tip of the iceberg of, all the great games, and, more to come.
Right.
Yeah, that was a good one. Mine, and I'm going to give 3 clues and people watching can also guess. So number 1, it was published by Hasbro in 2017 as part of their short-lived subscription box service. Remember when people were doing that? Like every company was doing a subscription box, and Hasbro attempted this, and I think it lasted like 6 months.
Okay.
That's 1. Number 2, it's a party game about facial expressions with a mirror.
Is that the one with the thing you put in your lips?
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you 5 seconds to guess before I give you the 3rd clue.
Is it called Hey, Look at My Face in the Mirror?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It was designed by me and called Hold That Face.
My God.
So thanks everyone for joining us on our last ever Board Game Broadscast.
You are an ass.
That's me. That's me.
Like, is that your picture though?
No, that's my name.
No, I understand. It'd be nice if they had actually put your face as one of those faces. That would have been fun.
Yeah, if they asked me, I would have done that.
Oh my God, Pam, that's not fair. Because you like always pull something out, and I just wasn't expecting it to be yours. Oh.
Okay. I forgive you. But yeah, that's my game. I checked on Amazon today though, and it's not on Amazon.com anymore, but it's still on Amazon.ca if you want to buy it. That was my first published game. Super proud of it. It's a really fun game where you have 4 different decks of different emotions. You have sad, scared, happy, and
what's my face
mad.
Right now?
You're sad and mad and a little surprised. Yeah, what is the face you make when you forget your friend's published game? That's all right.
Remember how we talked about anniversaries and how I don't know them? Guess what else, Pam? I don't know when my friends' birthdays are. You can tell me 4 times. I'll never remember. I will not remember. I don't even know. My nieces and nephews don't know when their birthdays are. They never get gifts from me. I'm that bad of a person. Are you
look like a better
now?
person?
No, I'm telling you, I'm a terrible person. Thanks. Now everybody knows it. Cool. New guest host.
It's okay.
You want to be a guest host of Board Game Broads?
I appreciate you and I forgive you. So you're picking 4 cards from one of the decks, and they all have different situations that are, fairly similar that play off that emotion. And I did a lot of research into the different emotions and how a lot of people mistake faces for different emotions. Like if you're concentrating really hard, they might think you're angry and things like that. So, one of the things might be you're staring at a piece of art and you just don't get it. That's in the angry deck because that can look angry. It's a really fun game.
So one thing that's kind of interesting. So when it comes to, because I may not know much about birthdays and stuff like that, but I do know neuroscience. And so one thing that's interesting, especially for working with adolescents, is their brains aren't fully developed, like their frontal lobe, about 10% not fully online. And so they use their amygdala, which is like, the part for your emotion, which is why when you think back of something really embarrassing, you feel that emotion, that's your amygdala. Right. And so there was a study done where they had pictures of emotions and they showed these faces to adults and to kids. And adults did really well because they're using their prefrontal lobe, which is decision-making and judgment and all that, using memory. Yeah. And they use that. But adolescents use that amygdala, which tends to just boil things down into like more pure emotive states, So adults are better at deciphering emotions than kids were. So that brings my question.
Yeah.
Did you play test this a lot with kids, or did you see how kids played this versus adults?
I did not play it with kids because it was, some of the situations are a bit more adult that kids wouldn't get, or, maybe they're, not age appropriate. Mm-hmm. So it is marked as 18 plus. It's not that bad. But I didn't really play test it with kids. But this group, I think they're in Texas, and they use animals as a way for children with developmental issues to, to connect with the animals and to learn. They actually use this game with their students, and they're in their early teens or mid-teens. And they found it's been a really great way for them to recognize emotions and connect with their other students in that way. So that's been really, really cool. Because I did play this with someone whose son was autistic, and she said, "Oh my God, this would be so great for my son to practice recognizing emotions on different places." Yeah,
because with training, that's early intervention can be so helpful. Is it something that we could play on with Zoom sometime, like for Board Game Broads?
Yeah, we could totally make that work. Yeah, that'd be really fun. Yeah, so any broads out there, if you want to join us, on this Saturday, we're chatting about prototyping, like different supplies you might use for prototyping, how much time you should spend on prototyping, tips and tricks for prototyping. So that's this Saturday. If you can't do it, we have other ones with different moderators every week on different days and different times. But we also just have social gaming nights. Those are on Wednesdays. So Kathleen and I are usually there. And then Sundays are the prototype feedback kind of playtesting sessions that Kathleen and Emily and other broads moderate. So it'd be great if you could join us. Also, subscribe to the Board Game Broadscast YouTube channel. I always forget to say that at the beginning of the show, but that's okay.
I don't know. Saying it
now. We have our URL. Thanks a lot to Mary Cousin who's watching for spreading the word. YouTube.com/Board Game Broadscast. All right. So, Kathleen, where can people find you?
Well, you can find all my game design resources that I offer for free at KathleenMercury.com. You can email me through there. I'm on Mercury. No, I'm on Twitter at Mercury with 7 M's, BGG as Funk Donut. So reach out because I like to talk to people because I am alone on my island of sadness right now.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. I'm fine. But yeah, hey, if people want to talk about anything, I'll talk about anything.
You like to talk? No. At the end of the show, can you slowly twirl around away?
Yeah.
Okay. You can find me at Party Hat Games. That's my website, Twitter, Facebook, all that. Thanks so much for joining us, and be sure to join the Board Game Broadcast Facebook group as well. This is Pam, and this has been Kathleen signing off and slowly turning away.